likes maple syrup? Did you know that you can produce your own from your backyard? It does take some time and effort, but in the end, it is well worth it. All kinds of maple trees can be tapped, including sugar maple, black maple, red maple, silver maple, Norway maple, big leaf maple, big tooth maple, and Rocky Mountain maple. But did you know that maple isn't the only tree that you can tap? Other trees that can be tapped include box elder trees, paper birch, yellow birch, black birch, gray birch, European white birch, alder trees, black walnut, butternut, English walnut, sycamore, linden, ironweed, hickory, and palm trees. Now, what do we mean by tapping? Tapping basically is transferring the sap of the tree into a collection container. The tool used is basically a small straw-like tool called a spile that goes inside the tree. The type of spile is important. They can be made out of all types of materials, including plastic, metal, and wood. The downside of plastic and wood is how easy they are to break when tapping with a hammer, or how easy it is to break when it's time to pull it out of the tree. I purchased these metal ones on Amazon. This is the second year I have used them, and they have held up well. These come with a hook, so a bucket can be hooked onto the spile. However, I prefer not to use them. It is easier to put the bucket on the ground because when they fill up fast, the buckets can get very heavy. Let's talk a little about the sap and the syrup. Don't confuse the two. Sap is what actually comes from the tree. It is a watery substance that looks like clear water. To obtain actual syrup, the sap must be boiled down. So, what kind of equipment do you need? You need to have the spiles. You need a bucket with a lid to collect the sap in. You need some type of tubing. And you will also need a large paper clip like the one shown here if your tubing is larger than the spile. If the tubing is the size of the spile, it will fit onto the spile easily and a paper clip won't be needed. You will also need a hammer and a drill with a drill bit that is the size of the spile. Once you have this gathered, you will need to wait for just the right time. Tapping a tree cannot be done at any time. Generally, the sap starts to flow between mid-February and mid-March. The exact time of year depends upon where you live and your weather conditions. Sap flows when daytime temperatures rise above freezing and nighttime temperatures fall below freezing. The rising temperature creates pressure in the tree, generating the sap flow. The sap produced early on in the sap flowing season is generally the best. You can put more than one spile into a tree, however, the size of the tree matters. If the diameter of the tree is between 12 and 20 inches wide, you should stick with only one spile. If the tree is between 21 and 27 inches wide, you can do 2 spiles. You can use 3 spiles if the diameter of the tree is greater than 27 inches wide. One thing to note is how high to drill the hole on the tree. A height between 2 to 3 feet is recommended. Try not to tap within 6 inches of any previous tapping holes. Drill the hole, but make sure to drill it at a slight angle upwards to allow the sap to flow downwards. Insert the spile. Take a hammer and gently tap it into place. At this point, you may or may not see any sap flowing to the ground. Make sure the bucket lid has a hole in the top to insert the tubing into. Once the tubing is in place, put it onto the spile. If needed, Add the larger paper clip to hold the tubing onto the spile. You need to make sure to check this often. It could fill up quickly, but you also need to make sure to not use any sap that gets too warm. If it gets too warm, it will go bad. Collect the sap and strain it. Make sure to store this in the refrigerator for no longer than 5 days. Once you have collected enough, you can boil the sap to make syrup. The sap contains a lot of water content, and that water must be boiled down to make the syrup. If you boil down 10 gallons of sap, this will equal to around 1 cup of syrup. Some people have found that the sap has a slight sweet taste and prefer to use the sap to sweeten drinks like sweet tea or fruity drinks. You can find sap sold for lots of money online, and syrup brings a pretty penny too. If you have never tapped a tree, give it a try. It's a resource that would come in handy in a survival situation. We here at Survival Homestead Teaching Farm enjoy teaching you ways to use what you have to make wonderful things. We appreciate you watching this video. Please continue to help us help you by liking, sharing, and subscribing.